I'm here today with Debbie Hepplewhite, who's the author of Nonsense Phonics Skills, and Kate Flowerdew, who's been using it in her school. So Debbie, can you explain why this programme will be so successful?
Yes, certainly. First of all, it's totally underpinned by the findings of research. And I'm not just talking about one piece of research or cherry-picking that research. I'm talking about an international body of research which has been building up for actually decades. And from that, we've been able to summarise what we call the 5 pillars of literacy. And I'm going to go through those here now. First of all, we have phonemic awareness, that learners need to be aware of the sounds in our language for both reading and spelling purposes. Then we now understand that we need to teach the complex English alphabetic code very systematically and explicitly and cumulatively. And actually, we're developing phonemic awareness within teaching the phonics. Then we need to teach vocabulary very explicitly. So of course children will be picking up language all of the time and at a quite fast rate, but as teachers we need to build on that and teach it explicitly and do overlearning for that. Then we need to be conscious of building up fluency. So some children are naturally able to read and read very quickly and soon build up their confidence, but for a lot of children it's not like that. So they need lots of repetition and repeat reading. And you have to think about what materials are the most suitable to allow that repetition. And then building up to the higher order stuff, we're thinking about language comprehension. So how well do they understand the material that they're reading? And language comprehension is about the spoken language, and it's also about reading comprehension, so that when they read a text, how well do they understand that text and how can they unpick that? So that's summarising a whole body of research. And then in England, when we had the National Review in 2006 conducted by Sir Jim Rose and his team, they recommended that we think about reading as 2 main processes called the simple view of reading. And the up-to-date national curriculum for English for Key Stage 1 and 2 is based on the simple view of reading. So by that I mean, the 2 main processes are technical things how we can decode the words and recognise them instantly and build up that competency to lift the words off the page. And as teachers, that's our responsibility to teach explicitly. And then it's the spoken language of the children for how well they can understand what they are reading. And as teachers, we're developing that all of the time within the reading instruction, within the wider curriculum. So how does that fit into this series of 9 books? Well, first of all, I've been working in this field for a very, very long time, and I've been teaching for many years. And so all of that practical experience and building on that work has gone into the design of this material. And what I've made sure is that we're actually addressing the technical processes of the phonics, but then immediately applying and extending that to actual texts. And I call them plain texts. So these are texts, little mini stories that don't have clues. The children have to apply and work hard. And then what's so interesting about this is thinking about what's the most fit-for-purpose resource for teaching reading, spelling and writing. And it's actually to give the teacher a body of work with which to work. Then people often worry about how is that going to address the sort of individual learning styles of the children or the breadth of different children that we have within our classes. But Jim Rose did something else that was really, really clever. He pointed out that regardless of the child, the language of the child, the spoken language, or even the age of the child, it's exactly the same English alphabetic code that we need to teach and they need to learn. It's exactly the same phonics skills for reading and for spelling that will actually last them a lifetime. And it is lifetime stuff. And so when children get older, they don't stop using the phonics. They need that for new words. And if they're reading a new word when, say, they're in secondary school and they haven't got it in their spoken language, the only way they can come up with a pronunciation is through phonics. So we have to have that perception of it being lifetime stuff. And so really, teachers will recognise that we've got our technical stuff to do, and this is the phonics, and that phonics is not just about blending for reading and segmenting for spelling, it's about handwriting. And research has shown us that actually the links with handwriting and phonics are really important. So in our material, we've actually built in handwriting with the alphabet letters and with the digraphs and trigraphs and with the sounds that match in our speech. what teachers will also recognise are what we call the teaching and learning cycle. We understand now about the concept of revisit and review. We're doing that every single lesson. We then have teacher-led, introducing the new or the focus letter sound correspondence. And then we need pupil practice at word level, so for reading and for spelling and the handwriting as well. But in this body of work, we then go on to those plain cumulative texts where children are digging deep and the teacher's working with the child on those texts and developing language comprehension. That's very interesting because when you look at material and you see plain texts, it's something which might not look very exciting. So sometimes people say, well, for little children, why would you do that? Where are the pictures? Where's the excitement? Where's the stimulation? But the content is the stimulation. And when the children have worked out what that piece of text is saying, they become the illustrators. And the reading of it evokes their imagination, and the teacher's working with their child and doing that vocabulary teaching all of the time.
Lovely. E. Great. O. Nice. We did A yesterday. Do you remember A was the bit of code that we learnt with the split digraph? That's what we learnt yesterday. Okay, we'll do one more. Yeah. Right, I'm really pleased how well you've remembered that, because U was a bit of a hard one for us to learn, wasn't it? We kept saying oo, yeah. Sometimes it's oo, sometimes it's you, and we learnt that split digraph like that. I want you to go through and start working straight away on your own, going through your Say the Sounds sheet, and you know what to do, so small ticks. Well done, Brooke. And put a circle round if you don't know. Okay, with this one.
I want to see if there's a few that you know. Do you remember this one here where it's got 2 sounds? And
have a look at this one here where it's got a number 2. Right, what's that one? Yeah, like in head. Can you think of the word where the E is spelt like that? Give yourself 2 ticks. I'll give you 2 ticks as I heard you. Well done. Very nice. Well done, Fletcher. Keep going. And Charlie, hold on a second. Are there any of these words that you're finding? So if you just recognise them and you remember how to do it, so you don't need to have to blend the whole word, okay? So have a what's this one? Great. Super. But you might have to blend those longer words. Remember what that one was?
Landscape.
Remember what it means? We talked about that quite a lot last week.
Yeah. This is landscape.
And what way is that?
Portrait.
Portrait, that's right. We talked about paper, didn't we? And also the picture that you look out of your window will be your landscape as well. Okay, let's go through the next word. Oh, sorry. There's something special about this word. Has anyone noticed anything special about this word? Zoe, what do you notice?
The S and the K make the S sound.
Good girl. So there's 2 letters, S and a C, but there's only one sound. It's a what sound is it, Zoe? Good girl. Okay, all together. S.
E. Scene.
Okay, now scene. I don't want you confusing this scene with a different sort of scene. If you're looking at something, I have seen you, it's not spelt this way, okay? This is a different sort of scene. Anyone remember who's had a go reading Missing Lily? Some of you in my class have had to go with reading Missing Lily. And Missing Lily is a special sort of book. It's not a story, it was a play. Do you remember, like you might see at the theatre? Hands down then. And when you make a play or write a play or put on a play at the theatre, you have different scenes. So those are all our words there that we've read. Now we're going to do a little bit of our spelling routine to work out the sounds in words to spell. So you're going to need your fingers ready for your air writing. I've got my pen. And the first word we're going to try and spell is theme. So you need your left hand with your palm facing you. And we're going to try and work out the sounds in theme. So let's say it nice and slowly. Theme. Theme. Okay, I'm going to draw 3 lines. I can see lots of you holding up 3 fingers with your spelling hand. Well done. Now, let's write the sounds in the right place. Can you say them with me? And you can write them in the air as we work them out. Off we go. Theme. Writing them in the air. Theme. Let's check by blending. Let's see if we spelt the word correctly. Theme. Oh, I can give myself a tick. Can you give yourself a tick in the air? Did you spell that correctly? Now let's have a go writing the whole word. So in the air, with your finger, writing the whole word, and make sure that you're saying the whole word as you write it. Off you go. Theme. Did you notice that I didn't do my cross on my T? I'm going to do that now, after I've finished writing it. I'm going to look at the 4 pictures in the puzzle and work out the sounds in those words. So the first word, tomato, and then we've got a centipede, and we've got somebody who is from Sweden, so the name that you call that person is a Swede. So have a think about those words when you come to play your little game. Right, I really like the way that you're going through, most of you've got to your words now, and you're going through and underlining all the E graphemes you can see. So I'd like you to have a look at the story, and I'd like you to just go straight through and start reading the story to yourself. Off you go.
Friends are lining up to compete. Parts in the play. Everyone wants to see if they can perform. Pete, Steve and Pete are so delighted to see their friends that they create roles for each and every one of them. Imagine the scene with a circus big top theme, 11 crazy clowns trying to perform on a constantly swinging trapeze. That's so cool. For each and every one of them. Imagine there's this scene with before on a constant. Yeah, can't read it. Me either. Sucklet. Swimming. Sucklet. Swimming. That's a circus. Oh, circus. Swimming trapeze. Swimming trapeze. Oh, swimming aquabat.
Right, everyone, we're going to have a go reading the whole story together now. Extremely funny. 3 good friends, Pete, Steve, and Eve, plan to write a play script together with an extremely funny theme.
I think historically the way we've taught phonics has come to a point where we could see from looking at these materials that we could be asking children to work harder. We could be giving them resources and equipment that would speed up their learning. And so these materials exactly do that. They give the teacher a body of work which the teacher can work from and it saves time. It means you haven't got to go looking for resources, making your own. But it's also flexible enough that you can pick parts that you feel would be useful for your children in your class, or you can add to them yourself. So you can widen the experience of children by talking about other resources that they've seen before and are using as well.
That's it exactly. And what I've been trying to put across at your school, isn't it, Kate? That actually, even if you've got older children that have got those gaps in code knowledge, you can still go back to whichever book, whichever point of that programme you need. So it's irrelevant how old they are, and it's about what do they need as children. So we're analysing what those special needs are. So do you think it's fair to say that the same body of work can be used for start-up, mainstream, systematically going through, but also for targeted support? So if the children need it at that age range, that's where we're going to fit in.
Well, we started using these resources with targeted support with older children in Key Stage 2 who had fallen behind with their phonics, had not passed the phonics screen and needed some extra teaching. And then it's grown into, well, these resources are working for these children, so can we use them further across the whole school? And started to use them in early years and in Key Stage 1 as well. So at the moment, it's introducing the system, and you can see that as the children become more familiar with them, the speed of which they work and are learning is growing. They're picking up the resources, they recognise the sheets, the pages, the books, and they understand the principles, they understand how we work, what we're doing today, what we're learning from this, and they're just grasping it, they're loving the structure.
Really, when you go in to observe a phonics lesson and you watch what's going on, it can be a really super lesson, but if you track a child, you find that they're not really saying many letter-sound correspondences. They're not really blending as an individual many words. They're not spelling those words. So if you provide teachers with a bank of words, the children may access them at their own level or at their own speed, but you've got that bank of words there in the first place. And so really what we're doing is we're enhancing a lot of things by the routines, that they know there's no downtime. It's very hard sometimes whether you've got a group or a larger group or a whole class to be able to supervise and monitor that. But don't you think it's fair to say that once your children who are quicker to learn know what to do, you don't have to hang over them all the time, so that you can actually focus on the children that need this closer supervision? Do you think that's a fair comment?
Yes, definitely. We have, where we have classes which are working all on the same piece of work, what we've discovered is that we can move the children up together. We're not putting a ceiling on the learning. Children who maybe can't read the entire body of the mini story are still learning the graphemes, they're being exposed to the vocabulary, they are having a go at their own pace. They're not noticing who's working faster, who's working slower, but they are not being held back in their learning.
Now, can I ask you about this as well, please, Kate? Because one of the things that I keep banging on about is this notion of spelling word banks. So we're doing the wonderful oral segmenting, we're teaching about the alphabetic code and how it links with the alphabet and the letter formation. But then what children also need to know is which words are spelt which way. And so it's, can you tell me 6 words or 10 words spelt with the OA grapheme or the AI? And that's something that we need to build in as well. And so in terms of the design of the books, that's what we're including, these spelling word banks. And so would you say that's a newish aspect to think about?
I think the pupils are maybe more used to reading, sometimes having to recall spelling patterns. We haven't done so much with some of the younger children. So because they're in the book and because the resources there is something that's pointing out, well, we could try that, let's have a go with it. And the children are responding really well.
So Kate, you've been using this with your children. What have you found that's been so successful?
The resources are certainly really useful and helpful. But I think one of the other things is that where we've introduced it across the whole school, we can see pupils in different year groups learning things in the same way. And what's really improved, I think, with us is that it's tightened up. So in different classes, different teachers maybe used to have different styles and would describe things in different ways, or would describe a process. And now we're being very clear the language that we're using. So we're using the language of, this is a piece of code. We're doing the same sort of actions we all hold our left hand in order to spell the words and work out what the sounds are. So it's really improved that consistency of approach across all year groups.
I think that's a very interesting point, because in my training and consultancy work, one of the issues for schools is we are doing phonics, we've done it for many years, we are good at it, but we can see that there is an inconsistency. And actually sometimes it's some of the slower learners and the weaker learners that go to more pairs of hands. So they are getting more of that inconsistency than even some of the quicker learners. So that is a really important thing. So basically I see my role as knowing about research, knowing about best practice, putting that all together into this streamlined body of work. I've tried to make it in a sort of a pick up and a go approach so people don't have to do massive organisation. So I call them teaching and learning books because I'm trying to support the teacher and I'm trying to support the learner all in one go and enabling all of that revision and repetition according to the needs of the class, the teacher, the age group of the children, and even the language requirements, because it could be English as an additional language or even English as a new language. So an older learner might need to start right from the beginning.
And one of the helpful parts of the books is that there is that information for teachers. So the words that you might be using, the way you might explain something to the children is just there and just in little writing, so you can glance down and say it to the child in a consistent approach.
And I think that's one of the things I've tried to do. I mean, at the beginning of these books, we take the whole of that alphabetic code chart and we've got the overview constantly, but then we're actually building up the chart in the steps with little post-it notes guidance for the adults as we go along. So each book is building up the chart. We have the overview, we can refer to it in the phonics lessons and in the wider curriculum for reading and spelling, and then we're building it up in chunks as we go along, so we're addressing both needs.
One of the things I found most effective is that because I've got my whole class and we're all following the same approach, when one of these graphemes comes up in something else we're doing, or there's incidental teaching across the different lessons, so we can bring wider world experiences into the phonics lessons. We can also bring the phonics into other curriculum subjects.
And actually, this is wonderful to summarise, actually, because as Jim Rose said exactly that. We need to teach phonics and not just have it as this bolt-on extra. We need to do it into that wider curriculum. So that's spot on, isn't it? Thank you.
And it links with the way, I think, previously in the way we used to teach phonics, it was very discrete and it was really just reading and writing. It wasn't incorporating the handwriting, the other aspects you're talking about, which, again, as a teacher, I can see that those wider links. We've maybe missed pursuing them in the past, and now we can.